Hello and welcome to my shop here at Beaver Creek Creations. Today we're going to talk about how to read a ruler and measurements. Today we have decided that we're going to do a small project to try to show how to read a ruler and how to read measurements. We've talked about that we build down to the 32nd here. We are very finite about our building process and very precise with our building process to make our joints good and tight so that they will last for a long time. So today we're going to build a shelf. And we've looked through some books. I'm sure most of us have spouses or loved ones that have their to-do lists for us as woodworkers, and they want us to do different things for us. They want us to build things for them, build different types of furniture for them, refinish furniture for them, as mine has. And I've done several things for my wife along those lines. So let's just say that she's looked through some books and she's decided that she needs a shelf in her room to decorate a wall that's just doesn't have enough items on the wall. It looks plain and she wants to decorate it and makes it look nice. So she decided she wanted a shelf. So we're going to make this shelf for her. She's decided that she's looked through some of my books that I have, and she's decided that she wants this particular design. And so we've decided that we're going to do that. So we have our design, we have our plan. In the book that we have the plan here that shows the measurements and the cuts and the design all together there, so we can decide how to build and make this shelf. It's a pretty straightforward shelf to make, and most of it is down to just a 1/16 of an inch from what I can see mostly. And so what I want to talk about now is how to read a ruler. A lot of people don't know how to read a ruler because a lot of people don't like math. I'm good at math. I like math. I love math. I've always been good with math. I've always been good with measurements. My dad taught me at a very young age how to read a ruler. And we built a lot of sheds for our farm equipment. We built a lot of houses. We built our own house. We built my uncle's houses. And so we built a lot of different things to put our equipment under and to live in. We also built some cabinets and things like that to use. So in order to do that, we have to know how to measure items. So what do we do when we want to measure items? We want to read the ruler. There are markings on rulers. Obviously, there are inches. Then there's half inches. Then there's quarter inches. Then there's 1/16 inches. And then there's 32nd inches. What does all of that mean? Well, I'm going to try to attempt to show you what all that means. All right, so here I've drawn out a typical ruler, if you will, and left out a lot of the marks to try to shut out some of the confusion of what all the marks mean. So first we want to know the hole is an inch. That's why you have a long mark across the whole entire ruler. It shows that is a whole inch. Then it goes and everything splits into half from there. That's the only difference in all of the measurements. Everything is just half. Of course, you have the 1/2 mark. Half of the half is a quarter. Half of a quarter is an eighth. Half of an eighth is a 1/16. And half of a 1/16 is a 32nd. That's all that means. So what are all the other little marks in there? Well, if you take a look at the ruler, everything is made to equal a whole. So if you have 2 halves, it equals 1 whole. 4/4 equals 1 whole. 8/8 equals 1 whole. 16/16 equals 1 whole. And 32/32 equals 1 whole. So what does that mean? That means that you have 2 marks to equal a half. 2 halves equals a whole. 4/4 equals a whole. So you have 4 marks on the quarter. You have 8/8 in a whole, which means you have 8 marks to mark the eighths in a whole, and so on and so forth. So what is that? How does that equal out to where we want to measure our project? Let's move on to see. Okay, so we've shown what the marks mean with half, quarter, eighths, sixteenths, and 32nds. Now let's apply that to our project. What does that mean for our project? Well, the actual shelf part, if you look at the drawing here, the actual shelf part is this piece here. And all of this is doing is showing the back piece in reference to the shelf, how we're going to notch that out and put that in. It also shows us the brace piece through the dotted lines. It's kind of giving you an x-ray, if you will, of this piece and where we'll attach the screws or nails or what have you to attach that piece to the shelf. And so what are our measurements? What does the piece need to be? It needs to be 5 7/16 inches wide, and that means we're going to go to, see if I can get it right here, 5, which is a whole, and then we're going to do 7/16. So each one of these marks is a 16th, right? Because you have 16 of these marks to the next hole. 16/16 is a 1 hole. So you have 1 whole inch and 16/16. So what does that mean? We're going to count over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's the next small line before you get to a half, because a half is 8/16. If you take that down, it would be 1/2, because 2 into 8 is, 2 into 8 would be 4, and 2 into 16 would be 8, and then you have 4/16, and then you do that again, and it would be 1/2. Okay, so that's all that means. So you're going 5 and 7/16 inches wide, and then 10 and 7/8, same deal. Going from 10, which is the whole, and then we're doing the next mark over, which is an 1/8, which means we have 8 of these marks. So you have 1/8, 2/8 or a quarter, 3/8, 4/8 or a half, 5/8, 6/8 or 3/4, 7/8, and then a whole inch. So we're going 10, which is a whole, and 7/8 inches long. All right, so that's what that means in measuring. Each mark equals out to a whole. If you count all the marks, you have 8/8, you have 4/4, you have 2 halves, you have 16/16, you have 32/32. So whenever you're doing it, all it is fractions. And a lot of us studied fractions in school, so hopefully we'll remember all of that math, and we're going to carry that over into our projects. All right, so let's get busy and get to making our project. First thing we want to do is we want to select our wood. I've done that. I've got an old piece of pine here They come out of another project that someone didn't want anymore, so they gave it to me, and I just broke it apart, and I've been upcycling the pieces to make other projects. And so I decided that I want to make this shelf out of this piece of wood, a project out of this piece of wood. So what do we do first? First thing we're going to do is we're going to joint the edge. What does that mean? That means we're going to take it to our joiner and we're going to straighten this edge because it might be wavy, it might be out of square, it might be whatever the case might be. We want to flatten it and make it good and flat so that when we cut it to size, it'll be the correct size, square, parallel, and all of that good stuff. And I'll talk about that a little more as the project goes along. Okay, here we are at my joiner, and this joiner has knives that turn really fast to cut the wood, so we need to be real careful. We want to use our safety gear, safety glasses, hearing protection if we need to, and use the safety guards. Always use your safety guards whenever you're woodworking. So always be careful, be safe, read your operator's manuals and safety protocols and follow all these safety protocols. And always, as no one ever used to say, there's no more important safety rule than the way to use safety glasses. So let's joint this piece of wood so that we can cut it to size. So there we have it. We have a nice, good, straight surface to work with. Now let's go over and cut it to width. Okay, here we are at the table saw. We're going to measure our dimensions. We're going to add a little bit to it. We're going to do what we call in the woodworking business and in the furniture business, we're going to make our rough cuts first. That means that we'll have enough material to actually get down to the final dimension when we're finished sizing up our lumber. So first of all, I'm going to measure and get my size that I need. Remember we said we wanted 5 7/16 final dimensions, so I'm going to add some to that. I'm going to come over to 5 3/4. Okay? 5 3/4. Remember our math. There are 4 quarters in a hole, and we're just marking over for the 3 quarters, the 3 marks. Okay, as I was cutting that, notice how I was cutting and I had my fingers hooked onto the fence. In case I had some kind of kickback, my hand wouldn't go into the blade. But always use your blade guard whenever you're making and using the table saw to keep very safe. Use your push sticks if you need to get any closer. Always remember safety. Safety, safety, safety. Can't stress that enough. It's safety with woodworking. My guy that I apprenticed under, Kenny Clark, he said that his grandfather worked for about 40 years in woodworking and he died with all of his fingers, which is a good accomplishment. And that's what we want to do here at Beaver Creek Creations also, is we want to be safe, work safe, stay safe, okay? So next we want to flatten the face of the board. We've flattened one edge, we've cut it to a rough size. Now we want to flatten our board to get it good and flat so that we can finish squaring it up. What does it mean by squaring? Square means that we have a 90-degree angle. That's what that means. Square is 90 degrees. Some more math for you. And then you have a 45-degree cut, or most of the time when you hear something about miter cuts, miter joints, most of the time, not all the time, sometimes, most of the time, it's a 45-degree cut, because with a square, the actual square, each corner is 90 degrees. And then you break it down from there. Triangles, each triangle is, the three angles are going to equal out to 180 degrees. Each angle on a square is going to equal 360 degrees. So always remember those aspects of math and those angles. Square means 90 degrees. So that's what we're working towards now, is trying to get everything flat, square, and parallel. Okay? So next we're going to go back to the joiner and we're going to face one side to get it good and flat. Gotta move my fence. And the fence is 90 degrees to the bed, which gives me that square that I was talking about earlier. So now we have a good flat surface and a good square edge. This edge right here should be good and square. All right, remember we said our final dimension was going to be 5 7/16. I'm measuring at the front of the blade and the back of the blade to make sure that everything is straight, parallel, and square. So now we have two square edges square to the face, right? So this edge is square to this edge is square to this. So now we have our let me see if I can get it where you can see it. 5 7/16. You see that? It's just under a half. You see those marks? 5 7/16. Now, we need to cut it to length. Alright, now I'm all set up now. We're going to use my miter gauge, which rides in a miter gauge slot on the table saw, which means this is going to hold it square to the blade. So remember we had a square edge, right? We have a square edge. Now we're going to make these square edges square to the end. All right, that's good and square. Now we're going to make our parallel cut. Remember we said we wanted, just double checking, 10 7/8 of an inch. Okay, 10 7/8. Puts it right there. There's a mark on both sides. Moving our fence out of the way. And we're going to make our cut. Okay, so there's our shelf. That's the top piece. That's going to be our shelf. All right. All right, so now we need to draw out the back of the shelf. So what we got to do is we got to go by our grid lines. See, they got a grid line on here. And all that does is give us a scale of what to work to lay it out. So the grid is, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's, I'll get where you can see it. The grid is 1/4 of an inch. So each square is 1/4 of an inch. So if we lay out our grid, with our ruler, we'll take our ruler and we'll lay out the 1/4 inch grid, right? So each one is 1/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1 inch. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 3 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 inches. So that's our grid. And then we're going to go the other way. Same deal. 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 2 inches. 1, 2, 3, 3 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 5 inches. I don't think that's as far as I need to go. No, actually I need to go a couple more inches because it's 1, 2, 3, 6. 1, 2, 3, 7. Now let's mark that out. Right? And this is what we call layout. We're just laying out our design, right? Laying it all out, just like so. And we're going to continue on that, making our grid lines so that we can get our pattern drawn out. So I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so I'm back. We've got our grid lines on. We've gotten our design drawn out. So what do we do next? Well, we cut it out. And what do we cut it out on? We cut it out on the bandsaw. So let's move over to the bandsaw. All right, here we are at the bandsaw. We're going to cut this design out real quick. There's our piece. Okay. So what do we have so far? We have our shelf, right? We have the piece that's going to fit in to the back of it, right? Well, what do we do with that? Well, we have to lay out and make the notch. Because remember, in our drawing, we have a notch to put the back that we just cut out and laid out and cut out into that notch, and that'll really help with the support and really make it good and strong, make a good strong joint. All right, so let's lay that out next. All right, come back over here. Sorry for all the juggling around, but I'm trying to do this by myself. Get it down here where we can see, hopefully. Now, our space cleared out here so we can see what we're doing, hopefully. And let's see, there's a better angle here. All right, so we're going to lay this out. So how do we do that? First thing we're going to do is find the center. Okay, what is the center? The center of it is going to be half of 10 7/8. So what's half of 10 7/8? Half of 10 is 5, right? And then half of 3/4 is 3/8, so 1, 2, 3. And then half of a eighth is a 16th. So we're going to mark it right here at 5 7/16. And that should give me, if I'm correct, half, which is right, 5 7/16. I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but I'm right there on 5 7/16, both ways. And let's square that mark across. Okay. Then we're going to take our other piece, which we've already made a center line on that when we laid it all out. So that should still be center. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that center mark. We're going to line the two center marks up, right? And we're going to do our layout. We're going to draw some lines, just like so. And we're going to use our square. We're going to square. We're going to square. And we're going to connect our marks. Now we need to cut this piece out. And when we cut that piece out, this piece will fit right in there. Okay? So let's do that next. Going back to the bandsaw. And we're going to make our cuts. All I did was lower the guard down so that it would be more safe. There you go. Good strong joint. And we'll do a little bit more finessing with it to get it good and clean up all the gaps or whatever. But yeah, that's a good strong joint right there. Just snug enough where it won't fall out, but loose enough where you can fit the pieces together. Now we have to make the bracket piece that goes in to hold the two pieces, to help hold the two pieces together. So let's do that next. All right, so the bracket piece is this piece here. And just like before, we're going to lay it out with our grid lines, and we're going to draw out our design onto the piece of wood that we want to cut out and put it all together. Okay, so that's what we'll do next. I'll be back in a minute. All right, so here we are back. I've done my layout. I've measured 4 1/4 by 4 3/8. I laid out my grid line and I made my design onto my wood. Right, so now we're going to cut it out. Once again on the bandsaw. So let's cut it out. Let's make our cut. There's our piece. Now let's see how everything fits together, right? And that's what we're after. We want to see how everything is fitting together. So let's get you up here where you can see. And we put this piece together earlier. A little fine tuning here to get everything where we wanted it. And that fits pretty good. And then this piece right in the center, right? And as you can see, everything's good and square, right? So there's our shelf. Okay? So you remember, I'm kind of holding it together. I haven't glued it or anything yet. This is just dry fitted together. Remember our shelf that we started off with our picture. Let me get the picture out here. So you see the picture, right? So how did we do so far? Everything's looking about the same, right? Just by looking at the picture and following our diagrams and our plans. But let's not stop there. Let's carry it a little bit further and dress up this top edge a little bit and these corners here a little bit. Dress things up a little bit with what we call a router table and some router bits and put some edges. And okay, so here we are at the router table. What does a router table do? It puts different designs on your wood. You can put round overs, you can put different profiles. Whatever the case might be, you have all different kinds of bits that we use. We have bigger round over bits, we have smaller round over bits. You have all different other types of bits that we can use also to make all kinds of different profiles. You can make roundovers, you can make cones, you can make what we call Roman ogee profiles, whatever you might want. But right now, I think we'll just dress this up with a nice roundover on all my edges. So let's do that next. So I've set up my router table. I got it where I want to cut at. I'm going to start on the end grain, go along the long grain, and then on the end grain. So now we have all of our profiles. We've got all of our pieces. So now let's sand. Yeah. Okay, so we got our sander. And we're going to sand all of our pieces before we put everything together. That way everything's good and flat. And we have good access to all the parts so we can sand everything good and thorough. And good sanding. We're going to sand with what's called 150. We're going to use 150. Sandpaper has different grits. The higher the number, the finer the paper. The finer the paper, the more smooth your piece is going to be. So we're going to use a 150 with this soft pine. Should be good enough to get everything smooth like we want. So let's sand. Okay, so we'll do all that with all the surfaces, removing all the tool marks, and everything good and flat and smooth. So after I get everything sanded, I'll come back. All right, so we've got everything sanded up real nice. Got all of our profiles on, got everything good and sanded. Now it's time for some assembly. So with wood, wood moves, it expands and contracts with humidity, which means moisture in the air. So the drier the air, the more it contracts. The damper the air, the more the humidity in the air, the more it expands. So it's constantly expanding and contraction with the humidity in the air. So it always is going to do that with the green this way. Usually it's not the long green, which means this way. Most of the time it's along the green this way. It's going to expand and contract this way. So we have grain differences here. This grain is going this way. When we put this together, this grain will be going this way. So when we glue it, we're going to just put one little dollop of glue right in the center, and that will allow for expansion and contraction so that it will not split over time. Get everything good and flush. Okay. Everything's fitting good, looks good. And we're going to put 2 nails there. So that's good. So that's good that way. Looks good. Got it together. Looking good so far. So now let's put the bracket on. So let's get it centered. And just doing it by eye. That looks good to me, so we're going to nail that in place. No glue on this. All right, that looks good. Now for the back, on the back side, we'll do the same thing. Let's see, let's do it like this so we can put a little. All right, there we have it. A real nice shelf, right? And we can fill in these holes and gaps with a little trick. Take some glue, put it in, just like so. And we'll rub a little glue on this joint here. And all this is going to do is I'm going to fill it in. I'll show you how I'm going to fill it in. A little bit more on this one. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little sawdust and sprinkle it right on those joints. Just like that. And then I'm going to rub it all in. Just like that. And then we'll take some sandpaper. Sand it. Just like that. There you have it. No more nail holes. Right? So a little more sanding, and then we'll put some finish on it. We'll stain it and put some polyurethane on it, and it'll be ready to hang. So there you have a real nice shelf that we made with knowledge of measurements and math. So hopefully now y'all can read a ruler and go out and make your own. So until next time, like, subscribe, please comment, and go to my Etsy shop at beavercreekbystanley.etsy.com and see what other things that I have to offer that I've made. I'm working on it, creating an Etsy shop, making an Etsy shop, and growing an Etsy shop. So y'all please go over and see what else I have at that shop to offer. So until next time, we'll see you then. So go out and make something in your wood shop. Thank you.